the app as we welcome in our ESPN 1320 Kings insider and host of the Insiders, James Ham.
And as we bring James into this conversation, mind you, there's like 4 of those players in the league. Max.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? This don't work out for every. I don't even think this works for. And I love the guy. This isn't even like what you would do for Dame Lillard. It's
right,
like
not even close.
Steph,
nope.
Giannis,
LeBron. That's it.
I think maybe you put Jokic in there. I mean, he's not a realistic situation,
sure.
But like that's it. I'm not. As much as I love him, I don't even know if Tatum's in that conversation.
He's probably not. You probably have to have titles under your belt to be in the conversation.
I don't think Luka's in that conversation.
James, have you thought about the moment when Giannis signs with the Kings?
Yes, I have. It's actually a daily ritual. I do that and then punch myself in the face. Just because I'm looking to inflict the most amount of pain on myself. Yeah, like these are always great conversations, right? I think it's always great to say, what if? But you also, like I've said this to you guys so many times, the best free agent signing in the history of the Sacramento Kings is Vlade Divac. And like that still holds true to this day. It could advance beyond that. It could be Malik Monk. It could be some other player, but a true free agent signing, he's the best there ever was in Sacramento. And that speaks volumes about the franchise, not about Vlade not being a good player, but he was in that era, he was probably the 10th or 12th best center. With everyone just like it's Oprah handed out Hall of Fame jackets to every single one of that entire era of center.
So, Ham, I don't know if you caught like what's going on. We're just, Giannis is doing a lot of talking. It really sounds like he's about to leave when he gets the opportunity as like a free agent or decline a player option or whatever the case may be. He's got 2 seasons before the player option comes up. And we're just trying to figure out like, what should Milwaukee do? Like, one part of us says trade him now, like, because he's gone. Like he's not. We're laying it out right here. He's not coming back. He's gonna leave. So do you just trade him now? And then there's the other school of thought of he's Giannis. He's gonna end up being probably a top 10 player of all time. I would maybe just see what I can do while he's here, and if I get nothing in return, at least I tried with a top 10 player of all time, but I'm not trading him. Like, I'm just not doing it. Like, what would you do in one of those situations?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're in a situation like you say the top 10, like that's kind of where he is. Like to move off of a guy like this, especially like in his prime, that's really, really difficult to do. And it's something that, no franchise has ever want to be faced with. Let's be completely honest. Like Damian Lillard, like he's one of the greatest Blazers of all time. He's not a top 30 player of all time.
Yeah.
And so there's something completely different here that we're discussing. We're talking about not a franchise level player. We're talking about a generational talent. And so whatever you're going to give up, it's going to be great if you're somehow going to get rid of him. But I don't know that Giannis is saying, I'm leaving. I think what he's saying is, I don't like the direction. You better fix it now. You're on the clock.
They can't fix it.
You're probably right. You're probably right that they can't fix it. But some of the comments, like he wants to make sure that everyone is putting in the work that he's putting in. That's really telling. That's something is not right. He doesn't like whether it's an individual or a group of players that aren't doing what he thinks it takes to become a champion again. And that's a huge problem. So if I'm the Bucks, I'm doing some major investigating and I'm sending people like within his inner circle, like, can you guys at least tell us what the problem is so we can try to fix it? And if they can't fix it, then, I think this thing can spin out pretty quick. And then it's probably one of the greatest arms races of all time. Because I don't even think I put KD in his world. This is a player that, is one of the most elite players we've ever seen in the league and can be a franchise changing guy on both ends of the court the day he walks in your gym.
So next year, Giannis in the Yeah, all right, that's fine. I just want to set reasonable expectations for everybody.
You know how you start this? You just start signing all of his brothers, all of them.
They tried.
Just keep signing all of them, and you just have them all like welcome home with all their crazy wingspans
They
reaching
gotta
out.
get back to that. They tried. Who was it? Alex who signed with the summer league team?
Yeah, so was that 50's favorite player? Was it Alex? Is that who he was talking about this whole time? When 50 said
See,
his favorite player's name was
I like
I
Alex.
like Alex.
this is it. So we have like 7 Antetokounmpo brothers and Fitty in the middle of a picture, like, come to us. This is how like it's like Joe and Gavin will mow your lawn. We
All the
got Fitty and
Brinson
we got
cognac.
all your brothers. We signed
Let's go
all the
Kings.
brothers.
There you go.
Let's go Kings.
Well, let's talk Kings. James, you were all over this story this weekend, and it was made official yesterday. You essentially said over the weekend, hey, league sources have told me it's JaVale and it's Alex. There's really no big man training camp battle. And the Kings were like, that damn James Ham, he's right. We're going to waive Neemias Queta and Nerlens Noel.
Sorry, guys, my bad.
Yeah, tell me about that and how they kind of got to the point where they just decided there's no battle to be had.
Yeah. Look, if you're looking at the center position that they have in place, and Sabonis is going to play 34, 35 minutes a night, that leaves you 13, 14 minutes. You know that Trey Lyles is going to play small ball center at least part of the time. He has to, or you just wasted a bunch of money on Sasha Vezenkov because that guy's a power forward. Keegan Murray's a power forward. Harrison Barnes can play the 4. You got a glut at that position as well. So if you know that, and then you're really comfortable with the 2 centers that you signed in Alex Len, who again was a great teammate and a great soldier for this team last year. And then on top of that, you're able to get JaVale, who this group is really enamored with. Making the team is going to be extremely difficult. You still probably need a backup point guard, whether that's going to be Jordan Ford, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, or it'll be someone else. Like you at least have to consider someone for that position, and you only have 1 roster spot left. So there aren't teams that are looking to keep 4 basic 7-footers, and then Trey Lyles on top of that. There isn't another team that's looking to do that that's out there. So that means that these 2 guys at the end, they just lost a really bad game of drawing the short straw. And it's tough. I really feel for Neemias Queta specifically. Not that I don't feel for Nerlens Noel. I mean, he's going to walk away with $300,000. Nimi's going to walk away like $250,000. But Nimi hasn't established himself in the league yet. And so Nerlens might find another job, and either way, he's made a bunch of money already. Nimi is going to have to fight to get a training camp invite at this point. He's going to have to maybe take a 2-way contract that he wasn't expecting to have to take. And that won't be with the Kings. He's going to be a complete unrestricted free agent if he clears waivers, and then all bets are off. And I think he deserves to be in the league. I think he's a guy who, again, at a minimum, a 2-way player going into this season. He was a star at the G League level, and he's only 24 years old. So I'm a little confused why they didn't invest a little bit more in him in this situation. But when you sign him to a regular contract, it basically spelled the end of him in Sacramento, unfortunately.
I mean, one of the things that you kind of talked about earlier today on the Insiders 10 to 12 is that you wonder why they didn't invest a little bit more. Is you broke it down perfectly. They're in a different spot as a franchise. If this would have happened a year ago and they had time and room to try to develop a guy like that on the NBA level, then he probably is here today and he's part of their plans. But they're in a position where they're trying to go from a playoff team to a championship team. And they feel like they just don't have the time to waste. Like they need guys that are going to help them win games now and in the playoffs. And I would assume they didn't think Neemias Queta to be one of those guys ahead of JaVale McGee.
Yeah, I mean, like the NBA is a game of opportunity, right? And sometimes opportunity never really happens for a player. And like we can look at like Scalabiciere, who was also waived this last weekend. Um, we can look at him like sort of in the same boat, but on the opposite end of the spectrum. The Kings had too many young players when Scal was here the first time, and he got lost in the shuffle of a sea of young players. At this point, all of a sudden you go from a really bad team to a really good team, and it happened in the like snap of the fingers, like it boom, it happened. And you could have had a 3-year or a 4-year plan with Nemias Queta, but that plan changes quickly. And when you become a team that can make a phone call to a guy like JaVale McGee, even a 35-year-old JaVale McGee, and he chooses you over the Golden State Warriors, that's when you really start to think, okay, we're not going to have problems next season, the year after that. As long as this is a path we're on and we're going to be successful and we're going to keep pushing, we're going to be able to backfill and find players like this that can help us, not this other spectrum of 24-year-olds who haven't been able to prove that they are NBA players yet. And the Kings have a lot of focus on one young player, and that young player is Keegan Murray. And outside of that, Davion Mitchell gets a little bit of that, and then nothing. Like Colby Jones will be lucky if he sees a minute of action in the NBA this year, barring like a really strange situation where things go south. He's buried on a depth chart. And Jalen Slauson, 2-way contract, again, buried on a depth chart. Keon Ellis, these guys are not going to be part of a rotation or part of what the Kings are doing for the most part, because you have so much depth, and Nimi was lost in that sea. And so you hope that he looks for not just a job, but the right like situation where he will actually get an opportunity. And I don't know where that's at, but I think there are already teams out there that are looking at him and that are intrigued by him.
So, Hammer, as you talk about depth charts there with, Neemias and Nerlens Noel being waived, what does training camp look like? Like, are we still looking at the depth chart? Are there still roster positions to be had? Like we speculated, well, the roster might need to be filled out a little bit, but the rotation's probably set. When you factor in, Trey Lyles' role with Domantas Sabonis and then JaVale and Alex Len, like we're probably pretty set in that regard. So, when you report from media day and practice here in a couple of weeks, like what storylines are we looking at?
I think that's a difficult thing. I mean, if we're looking at this team right now, they have 15 rostered players, including Jordan, which, again, that's a training camp deal. So if we really look at 14 players, I can tell you right now that the 12th man, the 14th man is Colby Jones. The 13th man is Kessler Edwards. The 12th man is probably Alex Len. And then we get to, like the other guys. Like that's when we start hitting JaVale. That's when we start hitting Chris Duarte. And that speaks to the volume. I mean, the depth of this team, the quality of depth as well. It's not just depth, it's quality of depth. And so I don't think there is a lot of intrigue to what's going to happen. I mean, we can sit here and say, okay, is Chris Duarte going to be able to earn his way into a full-time rotational spot? But again, we can do math really quickly and understand that like there aren't a lot of holes in the 9-man rotation, and like finding a few minutes here and there for a guy is not going to be easy.
Yeah, I would say it's a good problem to have, though.
It's a new
Yeah.
problem to have.
Yeah, it's a good new problem to have, and if that means, you know, Queta or Nerlens Noel, you kind of have to move on from them sooner than you expected or hoped. That's just kind of what it is. Yeah, like I said, James, I thought you laid it out perfectly. They're in a different tier now as a franchise. If this happened a year ago, yeah, we can work through any of the hiccups or anything else like that. They've got big goals right now, and I don't think they have time for any of that.
Yeah, and I don't think that's like an indictment on Nemias Queta. Like I think Nemias Queta can play ball. Like I actually think he can make a rotation in the NBA and actually be pretty solid. I do not think that he's just a washout and a waste of a second-round pick. I do not believe that at all. I think he will be a player, if he gets an opportunity, that can take advantage. The problem is the team you're on just isn't in the same place that you are anymore. And this happens all the time. You see guys sign 4-year deals, and at like 6 months into the 4-year deal, they don't make any sense for the team anymore. That happens all the time at the NBA level. Rashawn Holmes. This happened with Rashawn Holmes. It happened with JaVale McGee. JaVale McGee was, signed to a 3-year deal with the Dallas Mavericks last summer, and they waived him and stretch provisioned him, and now they have got to pay him like $2.5 million for the next 5 years. So like these things happen all the time. I think with Mimi very specifically, it's just that the opportunity to bring someone in like JaVale, who Mike Brown is so comfortable with. Mike Brown won championships with when he was on Steve Kerr's coaching staff at Golden State. And so, yeah, it's just an unfortunate, these things happen type deal.
Yeah, you mentioned Jordan Ford there a minute ago, following the announcements of Neemias Queta and Nerlens Noel. I believe it was Sean Cunningham that reported that Jordan Ford was, in fact, assigned to a training camp contract, as you just mentioned. What is Jordan Ford's future with Sacramento, or does he have a future with Sacramento?
Yeah, this is going to be interesting how they handle him. First of all, shout out to my guy, Sean. Sean was all over the Jordan Ford situation for the last couple of weeks. Look, this is a local kid, and he played really well for Stockton last year. He was excellent at St. Mary's for 4 years. He was a star for the Gales. And now you're getting him at a point where, he's had some experience overseas. He's had some experience in the G League. He ran your G League team last year, and you had the number 1 G League team in the league. If it's like just a standard Exhibit 10, like he's getting a 25,000 or 50,000, that's one thing, but I don't think that's what they're doing here. I think they're giving him a little bit more than that. There's also potential that, the Kings have another 2-way contract here that's available. I really like Jordan Ford on a 2-way contract, but it's really hard to say that I like Jordan Ford on a 2-way contract, but Neemias Queta can't fit, because they're basically the same thing. They're basically young players that are trying to make it. But I think the thing about Jordan Ford and being a point guard in this situation is we all know that De'Aaron Fox missed time last year. He missed 9 games last season. And that's, again, he's missed time almost every year. And you would expect that, between 5 and 10 games, he's going to miss. That's the way it goes when you have a point guard who plays the way he does with so much energy and speed and takes so many hits. And last year, Matthew Dellavedova played. I mean, I think he appeared in 32 games, and I don't think anyone expected that. So the Kings need that third guy. The question is, do they believe that Malik Monk can back? So you got Davion Mitchell, who's going to be your primary backup. But do you believe that Malik Monk can fit in and play some minutes if in a pinch? Do you think that Chris Duarte can slide over and play the 1 for some minutes if you really needed him to? And so I'm not sure that this team needs a third point guard. But if they think they do, signing Jordan Ford to a 2-way contract where he can bounce back and forth between Sacramento and Stockton, he can play up to 50 games with the parent club. He can't play in the playoffs, but he can play up to 50 games as a 2-way. That makes a ton of sense to me, because you don't just have a player who's sitting on the bench and twiddling his thumbs, and then all of a sudden, hey, it's go time. Run out there and go perform for us because Fox got hurt. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a player who would be at the G League level, staying in shape, running a team, like in rhythm, ready to go. And if you need him, he's a phone call away. He comes right up to the parent club. You can steal a couple of games here and there with him if you need to. And then he can go right back down doing what he was doing at the G League level. So there's a huge advantage to a player like Jordan, and the fact that, again, you couldn't do that with Dellavedova. Dellavedova is going to sit there and wait for his opportunity and run up and down the sidelines at every timeout trying to stay in shape. But this is a little different.
Yeah,
Delly, you gotta love him.
Baseline during the timeout. They out there giving away T-shirts, and Delly running up and down, high stepping up down the baseline.
Delly out there throwing T-shirts like,
Delly was like, I don't want the T-shirt cannon. Just let me use my arm.
That's right.
Yeah, man.
Give me that big noise sign. I'm gonna run around and get the fans up. I mean, Delly was always
And
like
there
getting his
wasn't
cardio in.
a person in that building, in the stands, or on that bench that didn't love him.
Oh, we love Delly.
All of them.
We love
Everybody loved him. Yep.
Yeah. But I'm happy to see that for Jordan Ford, man. I think everything that you just laid out him is spot on. It would be good for him to be able to be in Stockton and you know playing consistently. But like we talked about earlier in the show, Damien, he understands the system. It's almost seamless. When he comes in there, it's just whether or not he's going to execute. But he wouldn't have to learn a whole lot if he had to play for a week and a half for the Kings. It's just whether or not he'd be able to actually get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for pieces that and a pinch can help out. You can't have like what the San Francisco 49ers have done where they have great players at almost every position, and then your quarterback gets lit up because your right tackle's not good enough.
Mm.
Like so you can have the best tight end, the highest paid tight end. You can have one of the highest paid wide receivers, the highest paid running back, the highest paid defensive end, one of the highest paid middle and interior linemen, the highest paid linebacker. You can have all those things, but if your right tackle can't keep, somebody off your quarterback, you're going to be in trouble. And so that's kind of where I'm at with the Kings as well. Like if you feel comfortable with Davion Mitchell being your backup point guard and you think you can get by with Monk and with Duarte and whoever else to play the backup point, I'm okay with that, especially with, with Sabonis. Sabonis can run backup point and they have like 7 other centers still that they can run behind him and just have him play point guard and have JaVale playing down in the post.
We talked about Keegan kind of being the key to this whole thing and his development in his sophomore year and all of that stuff. After the last few months, man, I want to amend that a little bit. I think it's actually Keegan and Sasha. The things that we've been hearing about Sasha, yeah, I mean, and it's been happening for a while, but man, it feels like if Keegan's able to, take that step a little bit, they're getting a pro in Sasha.
Yeah, man.
This offseason might have been a little bit more. Granted, they didn't have to do anything with Keegan, but this offseason might be a little more impactful than people originally thought it would be when Harrison Barnes signed his contract extension.
I totally agree. And I made this point to you guys, was it 2 weeks ago, that if Sasha can be really close to as good as Keegan was last year, then that allows Keegan to just be whoever he's going to become. And that just like you basically have all the pieces in place that you had last year. If Sasha can take up the minutes that can not the minutes, the average to 12 points and the 4.5 rebounds per game and shoot close to 40% from 3. If he can do that, now Keegan becomes almost like an acquisition that has unlimited potential and a really high floor. And I think you can really grow. And so that's sort of like the key to taking off isn't only Keegan, it's that you have somebody else who's filling that void that he may leave behind to become something much better.
Every time I just get more and more hyped. Every time.
That's right.
Hammer, let's come back. I know you and Kyle talked at length on the Insiders Monday through Friday, 12 to noon here on ESPN 1320, about this player participation policy. And it sounds like we all have some of the same concerns, but I'm anxious to get your thoughts on this, what Adam Silver is trying to accomplish with this, and what it might mean for the league moving forward. So we'll do that with the host of the Insiders and our 1320 Kings Insider, James Ham with Dylan with Casey, brought to you by Sky River Casino, returns here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Clear. Clear.
Yeah, I feel bad for Nimi. Like he really, really wanted to stay in the NBA. And I think he'll stay in the NBA. I think there's opportunity here. But like his goal this summer was to stick and not have to go overseas. And, now we're a little late too, where a lot of the overseas money is already gone.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys signed right out of summer league.
Hopefully he finds a spot where he can work a little bit.
Yeah.
Thomas Lancaster, do you think the Kings will keep an open roster spot in case the Kings need? Yeah, there you go. Actually, Thomas, that's the other key. Like, it's the one thing I didn't really mention to if you do give Jordan Ford a two-way, like, and you might find someone else that you like more than Jordan Ford to give a two-way to. But the other key would be that you would go down to 14-man roster after at the end of camp, and that would open up the ability to keep an open roster spot. And I do believe the Kings want to keep an open roster spot. They've got there's a huge advantage to having an open roster spot down the road. And like we talked about it last year, where the Kings didn't have anyone to trade. Remember this weird situation where the Kings didn't have any players that they actually could trade, up to a certain point in the season. And then all of a sudden, they kind of freed things up where they could make some moves. It's a little bit like that. Like, that was during the offseason, right? Where the Kings couldn't make a trade leading up to the draft because they didn't have any players under contract. Now you got a bunch of $3 million league minimum deals that you can deal with, and Lynn and JaVale if he doesn't work out, or and having an open roster spot, it does mean something. At worst case scenario, you can get a Kessler Edwards and a first round, or a second round pick or two, just to collect assets. I don't know if somebody asked if Duarte ran point in his first year. I don't know. He played primarily at the shooting guard position, but this is a guy who averaged 2.7 assists per game in his last year in college, and 2.1 assists per game his first year in the pros in 28 minutes playing off the ball. He can pass. He's a good playmaker. Aldrin J brings up Kessler Edwards that I just brought up. I've heard he looks really good. He's worked on his mechanics on his shooting, and they're really, really happy with where he's at right now. They think he can, every time he shoots, it looks like it's going in. They feel like he's got a real nice confidence to him as a shooter.
Man, Tua looks sharp. Goodness gracious, that was a dime.
Oh, Giants came back and tied it up, huh? I'll be damned. Guess I'll turn it back on.
Well, if you turn it back on and they lose,
it'll be your fault.
Whose fault is that?
I'll blame it on you.
TJ brings up Nimi to Portland. Portland had interest before he signed in Sacramento. And I know at least one of the team is sniffing around.
Here's to him landing somewhere.
Yeah. That's where I was coming in. There's some people making some calls. And
picture perfect.
Tyreek really is a just incredibly unique weapon.
So fast. You can't hit him. Can't run with him.
We're coming back, I guess.
Right. I got a comp for him.
Feel like James was about to fire off a Tyreek Hill take, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I'm a fan. Not of him as a person, because I think he does have some he's had some issues off the field that I'm not too happy about. I believe. But he reminds me of a wide receiver version of Marshall Faulk. And that's because he never takes the big hit. Like, Marshall Faulk had an ability, same with Emmitt Smith on occasion. They just never got crushed. And that's why I really like Tyreek. He's so shifty, and he's not just shifty like running at you and making moves and making swerves. he's shifty once he's hit and all the world is crashing around him. He has an ability to get smaller and smaller and avoid just getting smacked around. Yeah, he is absolutely so talented. All you have to do with him, just have him run as far as he can go and then throw it anywhere in the air. And his ability to stop and move and come back for a ball or go sideways for a ball, just elite.
Just
elite.
overthrow him. Don't underthrow him.
It-
Overthrow him, and he can probably get to it.
And the crazy thing is, I don't know if you can.
Underthrow him?
No, I don't know if you can overthrow.
Oh, overthrow him. Oh, yeah.
That's
Well,
the
the
crazy
key-
part about it.
It's not just overthrow him, just overthrow the coverage because he's going to get past everybody. And that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like you just because he's so shifty and he's so quick while running full speed, he can move laterally. It makes him almost impossible to defend. And that's where like that play they had late in the game where Tua just threw it up. And here he's outside and he cuts right between two guys and catches a ball for, 50-yard gain. You're like, what in the world? He's so good.
This all came up because Tua and Tyreek Hill are on our TV screen here in the studio, and Louis Riddick was on our TV screen talking about it, and it reminded me. Did you see who's going to be in Boulder this Saturday?
I did.
Ooh, turn the
did.
volume up on your TV.
Mark Jones and Louis Riddick on the call for Deion Sanders.
Oh no.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
go.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's fire.
I'm gonna have to reach out to Mark. I want to know what their relationship is before.
Yeah, that is.
Because I know
that
it's
is
got to
fire.
be hot. Like they know each other. They're both Florida
I'm
guys.
certain.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
certain. Yeah, I'm
That's
certain.
gonna
Yeah.
be like, turn the volume up on your TV.
Yeah, that's one you watch in its entirety. As is D'Lo and KC live from Sky River next Thursday. Make your plans to be with us live from 32 Brew Street inside Sky River Casino. We're going to do the show live from there, just as we did back in March. The entire 4 hours. We're working on getting guests lined up as we speak. We'll be there on the air from 12 to 4. We're going to spend some time together for an hour. Then we're going to sit down. We're going to order some food. We're going to order some drinks. And we're going to watch football together as the 49ers open the home portion of their schedule on Thursday Night Football against the New York Giants. So we're super excited about that. We hope that you can make your way out there. Sky River Casino 1 week from tomorrow.
Yes.
Next Thursday, we'll be live watching football, doing a live show, doing a live broadcast at 32 Brew Street inside Sky River Casino. Hammer, back to the NFL, or excuse me, back to the NBA. I'm sorry. The player participation policy, as it's being called, has gotten a lot of attention over the last few days. Adam Silver spoke about it earlier today. Curious to get your thoughts. I was able to catch you and Kyle talking a bit about it on the Insiders this morning, 10 to 12, Monday through Friday, ESPN 1320. What do you think of this? Can it be enforced? Like, I think we can all agree Adam's intentions are in the right place, but can the league actually execute this? Very it's there's a lot in here. There's a lot they want to try to accomplish with this.
Yeah, I think the idea itself is good, right? I do. I think that forcing players to actually show up to work and play, whether it's on a nationally televised game or when it's on the road. To me, like I brought it up, like I went to go see Ed Sheeran this weekend, and all these people fly into Las Vegas to go see Ed Sheeran. And like I was in Ubers and taxis all weekend. They were doing nothing but picking people up at the airport for Ed Sheeran. And then he cancels like an hour before the show. And just all these people are stuck. I mean, luckily we had other things going on in Vegas, but there are people who just flew in for that show.
Yeah.
And so I bring that up because like there are so many people that buy expensive tickets to NBA games to go watch a LeBron James or go watch a Steph Curry or Kevin Durant, whatever it might be. And if you bring your kid to a game with the hopes of watching one of these superstars play, especially LeBron in one of his last seasons, like the dude can't play forever, and he doesn't play, to me, that's just garbage. And, I think the Clippers have done this for a couple of years now where they just sit out guys whenever they want with their stars. there are so many like very specific rules to it that I think have to be put in place. But the biggest thing is they're going to have an independent medical board who's overseeing this and saying, "Hey, look, that's not an injury. That's not something that should have cost your guy a bunch of games." And I think it's also a way to kind of crush the tanking, because that's the other
Yeah.
aspect to it,
Yep.
that late in the season, you're not allowed to just sit a guy for, most of the second half of the year just because. And, the Kings for a long time, they didn't do that. But over the last few years, man, Harrison Barnes sat out a few games at the end of the year. De'Aaron Fox sat out games at the end of the year. And not because they were like, they couldn't play at all, but because it didn't really matter. And I think the league is just trying to say, "Hey, look, we're not going to do that going forward. We need you guys here for big television games, and we need you guys here for like a Tuesday night in Sacramento. Like, show up." And, for me, it's not a big deal. I've seen LeBron James play so many times, it's crazy. But if you're going to a game to take your kid to a Kings Laker game and you paid $1,000 for a seat, and there's two of you there, so you want to have your kid see LeBron before he retires, and then the dude no shows. He did that last year, right? Or the year before, where all of a sudden he wasn't feeling good and he didn't play. That to me is something that the NBA has to put their foot down and like get back to playing 82 games. These guys, not only do they not play 82, they play 35, 36 minutes a night. Where are the Latrell Sprewell days where the dude's playing 43 minutes a night for 82 games? And, you just don't see it anymore.
Yeah, I see everything that you're saying about that. I will play a little bit of devil's advocate here and say that I think it's specific. We talked about it earlier, right? Like I think the NBA and Damian laid it out. They're trying to make this in-season tournament a thing, trying to get that paid for, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yep.
I have no problem with them saying, we need you guys to play all these games, all these in-season tournament games, and we need you to play when we're on national TV.
Mm-hmm.
If you have some type of schedule, with your trainer or whatever, or the athletic department that has you sitting out a game that week, let it be Tuesday and not TNT Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to start playing those games. The other reason why I would push back a little bit on like, hey, just get out there and play is because I think we all, and this is what they signed up for. So it's, you sign up for what it is. But I think we all agree there's too many games. And the reason why they're not shortening the season is because nobody wants to give money up.
Yeah.
The owners don't want to give up money. The
Mhm.
players don't want to give up money. But we all agree they play wait. There's no need to play 82 games and play 4 games in 5 nights and play 4 games a week. There's no need for it. You could put that down to 66 or 65 or whatever has them eligible to win these awards. And that could be the season. But nobody wants to do that because nobody wants to give any money back. So to just be like, hey, go play regardless, I wouldn't go that far. But I would say, hey, you need to work with us. Like, you guys can't just be sitting out all the time, especially on these national TV games and in-season tournament games.
Yeah, I mean, there's been enough players who just basically sit like that, and there's nothing. A team doesn't have recourse. Now the league has recourse. I think that's big. We had a couple of years ago where Carl Anthony Towns cleared every medical, test possible and sat for another 30 games, and the T Wolves sunk. Their entire season just went away, and they just kept saying like, "What do we do?" Like knowing people around that franchise, just like, I guess this is the new NBA. We just got to deal with it. He doesn't want to play. We're not going to have the ability to have him play. And, I think we can say the same thing. Like, Kawhi is like quietly sat out like most of the last 4 seasons. Like, of the last 4 seasons, what's he played? Like maybe like 1.25 of a season. That's You're paying these guys a lot of money, but at the same time, it is about the fans. It's about the product that you're putting on the court. And if you're going to be a star-driven league, you can't have your stars just take days off and not show up for standard games because. And I do like some of it. There's always going to be some kickback. There's always going to be some sort of situation that you got to be mindful of. And I'd even say, like, if you look at like Kyle and I were talking about the Warriors and like their situation. Because, if you're an all-star or an all-NBA player in the previous 3 seasons, then this, basically is you. This is what they're setting the rule for. Well, that's like the entire roster of the Golden State Warriors. They have a 35-year-old and above rule that's put in place. On top of that, they have a 34,000 minute for your career or 1,000-minute playoff like exemption. So there are ways to get around this for players who have put like an extreme amount of stress on their body. But there's something that Kyle brought up that I thought was very brilliant, because I think we're all thinking, like, look, this means so much in the regular season. You need to show up for a game here. You need to show up there. And his point wasn't that. It's like, hey, Chris Paul at 60 games going into the playoffs with 20 games off, and he might have some freshness to him if he's missed some time, if you've given him breaks and all that stuff. The fact that you're going to force players to play close to 82, okay, that means that your product in the playoffs could be diminished because they didn't get their rest during the season. And it's just another avenue of looking at this. And I thought it was really like astute point from Kyle, that I didn't even look at it. Like, he's like, well, I think where the real value is going to be in the playoffs. I'm like, well, no one's going to sit in the playoffs. He's like, no, but if they were forced to play every night, especially in the last 10 games of the season, when, who knows what's going, they could already have their playoff spot sealed, and you're going to force a guy to go out and play as opposed to resting up for the playoffs. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
I just don't know how you enforce it, Hammer. Like I get like that, like everything becomes an investigation, right? I think that was a line that Bobby Marks used when he was describing these situations, where he used an example last year. He used the Golden State Warriors, where the Steph, Clay, Draymond played at home. Two nights later, they sat in Utah, all 3 of them, and he said that would trigger an investigation from the NBA. All right, like, hey, Clay got roughed up last game. We all saw it. It's on film. His ankle. I know he finished the game, but y'all know that. And Steph has a cold.
They're going to have to say something.
I don't know how it triggers an investigation. The NBA investigator comes around. What's going on here? Yo, Steph had a cold. What you want me to do?
Yeah.
I in theory, I like it, especially when it comes to late season tanking. It's what it is. They did everything they could to not use that word, but that's what we're talking about, late season tanking. And for the in-season tournament, because I recognize the importance of the in-season tournament. Like, I understand that. I think teams will buy into it. I think teams will buy into the in-season tournament. I'll be really curious to see what creative ways teams navigate that stuff at the end of the season. The Bradley Beal not playing for Washington, the Dame Lillard not playing in back-to-back seasons for the Portland Trailblazers. Because obviously this won't be the case this year. You got a Victor Wembanyama out there. Teams may just get fined. Fine me. Like, I got a chance. I lose if I lose 3 out of my next 4, I got a better chance to draft Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
Cool. What's that? It's 200. That's 1.5 million. Cool. Here's the check now. Get the hell out of my face.
I don't know if you looked at the fine. It's a tiered fine system. So it's something like, for the first time you get caught, it's 125,000. You get caught again, it's 250. You get caught a third time, it's $1 million more than your previous fine. And for every infraction after that, it's $1 million more than the previous fine from before. So it goes from 125 to 250 to 1.25 to 2.25 to 3.25, and it just keeps going up. And so if you got a team that maybe they get hit with like a
how much is Victor
game.
Wembanyama worth to you?
Take my $10 million. I don't care.
Well, but see, Victor isn't going to fit into this category because he hasn't made an All-Star team or an All-NBA appearance.
No, but what he would say was like last year. Like,
oh yeah,
how much is having the opportunity to draft Victor worth? It's probably more than $10 million.
I get you. My point would be the biggest loser in this whole entire thing is Paul George, because he's gonna be looking over like, Kawhi, are you playing tonight? Because one of us has to play. And
Rock,
if you ain't playing again, it's me again. Like, how come it's always me, Kawhi?
rock, paper,
So-
scissors in that Clippers locker room. Who playing? I think
y'all need to leave Paul George and Kawhi Leonard alone.
well, they're really hurt too. Like that's the other thing.
But they're not. They're recovering. That what's the there's a term for it they use now.
Return to competitive play.
Is that what it is? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
return to
something along those
competitive.
lines.
Oh, competitive conditioning. Return to competitive.
They've labeled it. It's become so normal now. They've labeled this thing.
It's like that season where every single Sacramento Kings player had gastroenteritis. Every one of them.
Oh.
Well,
Everyone.
sounds-
You all got it.
Sounds like
at
a
different
sounds
points.
like a Delta flight.
Sounds like a Kobe burger. Yeah.
Oh man. I think I really believe though that
Man.
these rules are in place. I don't want to say only for perception, but I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think David Stern, Adam Silver, is in constant communication with the Players Association. Like, look, man, we're not going to get crazy with this thing unless you make us get crazy with it. Work with us. Like, if you have a bad foot and you need a night off or something like that, like we understand. Like, we're not going to go crazy and be like, no, you were supposed to play. Like, we understand, but don't just do the blatant. Nothing's wrong with me. I'm just not playing tonight on this ABC Sunday game. Like, don't do that no more. Like, work with us so we don't have to go crazy. It's almost like how the dress code went, right? Like, people always talk about the dress code. They never really enforced that dress code after a while. They were just like, you guys can't come here with state property pants. Like,
well, it wasn't just that, and I believe it 100%. It mostly centered on Allen Iverson.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what Steve Nash used to wear?
Oh, Tim Duncan.
Steve Nash. I remember what Tim Duncan used to wear. Steve Nash would be out there like he just got done surfing. He'd have flip flops and like swim shorts on.
Yeah,
like, bro, what are you doing?
So did Tim Duncan. That was the funny thing.
When I got stared down by Russ at the Western Conference Finals, he looked like he was wearing like part of the Dare Elite campaign from Zoolander. And I'm like, what is happening, man?
You don't understand fashion, James. We're not going to.
A white T-shirt with holes in it, it's just not fashion.
Those are just,
that's fire.
As Anthony Anderson would say, as Andre Johnson would say, pause. Those are designer holes, James.
Yes.
Those are designer holes.
But on top of that, like, nobody really got fined. I think the NBA was like, we're putting this in place. You guys just work with us. Don't have us looking crazy. And we won't like go crazy on fines and suspensions and all that other stuff. I think that's what the playing situation is going to be like.
Anyone want to guess the most games in a row that Paul George played last year?
8.
No. You're all wrong. So was Jesse. He played 16 of 17. That's obviously not in a row, but not late. 54 to 7. It's 19 games.
19 games in a row?
Mm-hmm. Now, Marvin, I think, was 23.
So,
the first,
and he did it once.
Yeah.
His first 3 years, the longest stretch was 23.
Kawhi.
That's 4.
Kawhi was 5. No, actually, check that. No, it was 5. Yeah. Well, it was actually 7 because he played the 5 games to end the regular season in the first 2 games of the playoffs. And then guess what happened?
Well, he clearly didn't take enough time off and wasn't healthy going into the playoffs. I think
his thing was so weird. He played game 1, didn't play game 2, which was here. Played game 3, and then missed like 10 straight games. It's so weird. Then he played 3 games and then missed 7.
See, that's what they're trying to avoid. I think that's what they're trying to avoid. Now, on the flip side, RIP, real quick, the whole just, hey, our doctors aren't seeing anything. You need to get out there and play. There is Kawhi with San Antonio. When Kawhi was like, yo, I don't feel right.
Yep.
They're like, our doctors aren't saying nothing. Like, we don't know what you're talking about. It's like, I don't feel right. Like, I can't play. And I think that's what we have to be careful. Like, I don't want that to happen where they're telling you, like, I'm not right. And they're saying, no, you have to go play anyway.
Right. I'll say this. Go ahead, Hammer. Sorry.
Well, we also had this situation with like Ben Simmons where he like, hey, mentally, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets traded and we're all thinking, oh, he's going to go to Brooklyn and just start playing again. And it's like, no, I'm not ready yet. And then all of a sudden he started having back problems, which again can be stress induced and like a huge part of something else. And that's where I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
I want to get this one last thing off because you mentioned Kawhi, which I had forgotten about what he went through in San Antonio. Anybody remember who the original coach to sit players on national television was?
Hall of Fame.
It was Greg Popovich, and he did it to be spiteful. He did it to be pissed off. And he's the one I've maintained this, and I believe this in my heart. What happened at the end of Kawhi Leonard's career in San Antonio ruined him. The fact that he had his coach and players questioning the legitimacy of an injury that he was trying to tell them he's not right. I'm not right. I'm not right. I think that has set in motion all of this load managing stuff that he does now. I just throwing that out there. We praise Greg Popovich a lot, but he deserves some criticism for some of the things that happen in the league right now. Hall of Fame coach, no doubt. Hall of Fame insider, James Ham, right there.